Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Thursday, November the 15th, and welcome to our video commentary. Well, as you may be familiar, there was an arrangement between Cuba and Brazil, and under that arrangement, Cuba would send doctors to Brazil. These doctors, then the Brazilian government would pay the Cuban government almost like renting Cuban doctors. That's the only way, the easiest way to explain it. They would be leasing or renting these doctors, and then the doctors would work and live in Brazil, but the doctors were not allowed to bring their families, and the arrangement was not very good for the doctors because basically Brazil would pay Cuba in hard currency, and then Cuba would pay the doctors in worthless Cuban pesos. And there have been a lot of stories about this. I mean, this is not a very good deal for the doctors, but it went on because Cuba and the previous government in Brazil had a good relationship. But now with Mr. Bolsonaro, things have changed. And Mr. Bolsonaro is saying two things. Number one, we're not going to participate in this. In fact, in a tweet, the president-elect of Brazil actually called it slave labor, which is, I think, exactly what it is. It is a slave labor. And he said, we're not going to participate in this anymore unless the money is paid directly to the doctors and the doctors are allowed to bring their families to Brazil with them. Of course, the reason they were not allowed to bring their families was because the Cuban government would use their families back in Cuba as a way of preventing these Cuban doctors from seeking asylum in an embassy or whatever. So they kept the family back in Cuba and said, we're going to send you, but if you decide to leave the country or seek asylum, we're going to punish your family back home. This is a tactic, of course, that the Cuban government has used in the past with athletes and diplomats and so on. So it appears that the Cuban government is not going to accept the new conditions by President-elect Bolsonaro, and probably the Cuban doctors will be going back sometime soon. Exactly when, I don't know. But this is really a great move by President-elect Bolsonaro. It once again confirms that he was the right person for the job, because look, this is a sham what the Cuban government was doing with these doctors. They were using these doctors, they would send them to different countries, the countries would pay in hard currency, it was a source of hard currency for the Cuban government, and then these doctors would be paid in worthless Cuban pesos while they were working overseas. So a good move by President-elect Bolsonaro. And it's about time. It's about time that somebody in Latin America stood up to Cuba like this and said, no, we're not going to play this game. We're not going to participate in this sham, as President-elect Bolsonaro called it, a sham of slave labor. He's exactly correct how President-elect Bolsonaro is describing this. So well done, President-elect Bolsonaro. We have all of these videos on YouTube, on Twitter, on my blog. And if November 15th is your birthday, happy birthday. Bye-bye, everybody.